Hey everybody, Mr. Alex here, coming to you with a brand new interview. This time we're going to talk to the author of Lupe Wong Won't Dance, Miss Donna Barba Higuera. I have to tell you, I haven't laughed this hard in a long time. Donna is going to take us through all the ins and outs of the novel writing process and how she came up with such a unique character as Lupe. I want a friend like Lupe. I desperately needed a friend like Lupe when I was a kid. Let's take a look at the interview. But before we do that, let's roll that opening montage. Donna, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
Not bad. I'm getting a little stir crazy from all the quarantine, but I actually went to Costco today, so that was my big outing.
Oh, wow, you had an early start.
I did. I was up and out of the house by 9 to get at the store by 9:30. We were the only people there. It was delightful, and I bought enough
Oh,
food for I think 2 months.
oh, good. Then you're set.
How have you been doing your shopping?
Some online, and every once in a while I'll do. Yesterday, I actually went to Trader Joe's. I hadn't been in a very long time, and I told the lady checking out, there's like comfort in some of the regular foods we used to get months ago, and I'm like, oh, I've missed you, mango yogurt, and so I was able to
Right,
get
and they
things I
have
hadn't
the
had in a while.
coolest little niche things too
Yeah,
that I love that you can't find anywhere else. The postman knocks on my door when I don't get a Prime package to make sure that I'm okay.
you still alive in there?
Exactly. That's exactly right. So by now the secret's out because there are interviews posted online that we play a game called Clear the Shelf before. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe you haven't seen it.
I
So
have
we
not.
play a game called Clear the Shelf before we get to the interview portion of the
Okay.
interview. See, that's why you need to talk to your publicist before you agree to doing these things. You meet a stranger on Twitter, and look at you now.
I know. I'm excited for it. I have no warning. I watched one of your interviews, but I didn't see that. I watched the second part, so that's probably why.
All
So,
right, now you have to be frightened.
okay.
So I ask you a bunch of questions that don't have anything to do with anything, and you just tell me the first thing that pops into your head.
Oh, this I'm good at, and it's always ridiculous, but okay, let's go.
Well, there are wrong answers, and I will tell you.
Oh no. Well, I guarantee you I will put my foot in my mouth. So,
And I guarantee you I will help you. All right, so in the movie of your life, who would you want to portray you? This
in the
isn't
movie of
easy.
my
We're starting easy. In the movie of your life, who would you want to portray you?
would I want to portray me? Oh my gosh, of course. Oh my gosh, who would I want to portray me? I don't know.
I'm
I don't
thinking
know.
Jennifer Lopez, Salma Hayek. I mean, there are tons of
Oh, Salma
versions,
Hayek. Oh, yeah, I'm totally attracted to her, so I would say Salma Hayek.
right? I mean, gorgeous and an actor that actually has
She looks her
range.
stuff. She's nothing like me, but I would love it if
She doesn't have to look anything like you. So, who would actually end up portraying you?
Salma Hayek,
Oh no, you can't
please.
get off that easy. Nice try. Try again.
Um, oh my gosh, who would portray me? Probably. Um, oh my gosh, what's her name? Melissa something. She's a
Melissa
comedian.
Gilbert or
Oh
Melissa
no,
from Melissa
I
Gilbert?
have been called Melissa Gilbert when I was
No,
little. I
you
had a
have
big butt.
not.
I had a
That's a
space.
lie.
I had a big space between my teeth when I was little, like Laura Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie. So people said, yeah, that I looked like Melissa Gilbert, but it wasn't because I did. It's because I had a space between my teeth. We are so off topic. This was supposed to be like
I told you this is break the ice moment, right? So are you an aisle or a window?
Oh, window.
Okay. So what happens if I put you in the middle seat?
Um, I squeeze. I'm like I love people. I love hugging people I know, but I don't like
We're not
touching
allowed to
people I
touch
don't.
people now. I'm sorry.
I
It's first
know.
of
I
all,
know.
it's illegal, and secondly, it's not healthy anymore. Do you
Exactly.
randomly go touching strangers? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
If it's someone who I like, if I meet somebody, define stranger. Like if for me, if I meet someone and we like hit it
This
off, I can
interview,
know to hug
you know,
people.
I never cut interviews, but I'm starting to get the feeling that this one's going to need to be edited.
We're having fun.
Oh, I'm having a blast, and I'll show this at some inappropriate moment somewhere. It's all right, keep going.
My words will come back to haunt me, I'm sure.
No, the interview will not be edited. All right, one last question in
Okay.
this genre, right? So,
Okay.
if you could live inside of any book, what book would you live in?
Okay. I know this answer, and this is going to seem really weird, but I looked it up and it actually was a book. And I was fascinated with Land of the Lost when I was younger. They had these massive strawberries, and when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was eat this massive strawberries. Like we didn't have a ton of money, so I didn't get fruit all the time, and I just wanted those strawberries that um
You know
Holly.
what? That is the right answer because so many of us grew up not having fruit all the time and not
Yeah.
having those things. So you've ruined my follow-up. I have no humor to go with that. You've killed the segment. Now we have to go on and talk about your damn
Start
book.
over.
Oh no, we're going forward.
Oh, okay.
We don't stop. We don't edit. So this little book
Yeah.
that is going to get a rave actually, and this interview is going to post at the same time that the book will post, maybe a couple days before. Lupe Wong won't dance.
Yeah.
It's a pretty amazing book, young lady. And I mean young lady with all of the warmth in my heart because Lupe is such an incredible young lady that I feel that I know her.
Mm, me too.
How did she come about?
Well, Lupe is definitely her own character. She might be a bit of a combination of myself and my daughters. And the topic came up and she popped to life. It was just one night over dinner. And my youngest daughter, Sophia, came home from school and was upset that she was going to have to square dance in PE. And my older daughter, was of course teasing her, and I said, why are we not did you have to square dance? And my older daughter's like, yeah, we all had to. And I'm like, what, are they still doing this? But
Yes, they
anyway,
are.
turns out they are. And it's part of curriculum in like 50% of schools. I think people don't realize this, but my daughter was upset because my older daughter told her she couldn't dance with her best friend Gracie, and not only that, she was going to have to dance with the boy, and she had to dance with the boy who asked her, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And we started talking about how we would speak up and maybe say that we don't really want to do this. And I thought, gosh, we're all not necessarily meek, but we have a difficult time speaking up for ourselves sometimes at that age. And I thought, I need a character. If I'm going to write about this, I'm like, this is a great book. What kind of character would speak up for herself? And so I took a combination of myself and my daughters. And my older daughter is just a spitfire. And so Lupe is actually a bit of a toned down version of my oldest daughter and kind of a
I have
combination.
got to meet your oldest daughter. Let's get her on camera.
She
No, I'm
is
kidding.
she's amazing. And yeah, she's in college now and off and running and doing awesome things. And she'll be an amazing advocate. She's studying sign language and just great. I have great kids. I'm so fortunate. But it kind of came about as my daughter's just kind of saying, okay, what would we say? And Lupe kind of came to life. And I went up to my room that night and started writing the first chapter. And I'm like, oh my gosh, not only is she a strong character, she's really funny. And
She
writers,
is really funny. And for people who aren't familiar with the book, I want you to give them the little elevator pitch right now because I'm not going to read that opening paragraph that's been plastered all over the press because
It's a little too funny. It's hysterical. I mean, it really sets up the book beautifully, but I want to hear how you would set up the book.
My elevator pitch would be Lupe Wong, who's always been an advocate for one thing or another, uh, suddenly finds a cause that may or may not be quite as important as the others, and learns a lot of lessons along the way about life and herself and how she treats others. I don't know. I think that, like you said, a lot of people pull certain things out of the novel that maybe I didn't. Um, I think for me, there are things that people may or may not get out of the novel that are embedded within that were important to me and emotional for me, but you can't, every reader has their own interpretation, I suppose.
Well, yes, I think readers are free to interpret characters that are written, but what did you want to bring out when you were writing this? I mean, this is your narrative arc that you wrote.
Writers have wounds. And
tell me what you were trying to heal. I have time.
I know exactly what it was, but I didn't know it until after I'd written it. And it was that she had wounds about her culture, being bicultural in her race, and how maybe others viewed her. I think that was a huge part of it for me.
I think that you have done what is very difficult to do, and that's establish the cultural background and fully develop the character in under 400 pages. But you also took it one step further. You did it to a character that is complete with two cultures. Mm-hmm. So what was that process like?
Well, in writing her, I pulled from my own experience. And
well, tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, so it's complicated. So
again, we have time. Don't worry, you will get the therapy bill. I tell this to authors all the time. They don't believe me. The bill shows up. They don't pay it. But it's okay. You'll get it.
I'll get sent to collections. So I grew up in Central California, and I grew up, my part of my family is originally from Mexico. My other half is white. And growing up, I grew up in a very, very white community in a small little town. And even though I am white, and it's people knew my family, like, so people, I got a lot of like, what are yous and where are you from, that kind of thing. But people knew who my family was because my father's family had lived there. And so there were kids, who mistreated me more so when I was younger, and maybe elementary age, and it got better as I got older. But then when I was in graduate school, I met my first husband, who was Chinese, and I was young, and I was pulled into his family and culture, and I love his family. And then, of course, you don't know this, my older daughter is adopted. She's from Southern China. And I worked hard to make sure that my children had we're still seeing all their different cultures. And so when writing Lupe, people say, oh, did you do a lot of research or whatever? Not really. I just pulled from life experiences.
Well, you had been doing the research. You'd been doing the research all along while you were raising your child.
Well, yeah. And
experiential learning.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, but there were things, and it's difficult because sometimes there are things that people go, oh, these are stereotypes and they're cliche, but they actually do happen. But so you have to be cautious about, in writing characters, the balance, and maybe not always pushing certain stereotypes.
So how did you get it through the sensitivity reader? Because we know there was a sensitivity reader. There
were lots of sensitivity readers.
You have, let's see, you have neurodiversity. Mm-hmm. You have, let's call it a slight mention, although we can talk about it if we decide to bring up spoilers later, with orientation and identity. You have racial issues that come up. You have the smorgasbord of sensitivity in a funny, poignant novel. I mean, that's a lot to balance.
It was a
How,
lot of work.
how many sensitivity readers were there? At least you employed the entire staff at Living Querido, didn't you?
Well, yeah, like they all read it and everybody would say, "Hey, you might want to change this word or what have you," and that was helpful. So for the neurodiversity aspect, that was the hardest to write, and I didn't get it right the first time, and it was very humbling. And I had an authenticity reader who wrote or read about Niles. I actually had my first sensitivity reader was a child, and he gave me some incredible feedback. And then I had two more adult professional, both neurodiverse sensitivity readers for Niles, and it was a lot of work and a lot of changes. At one point, I had to go back through the entire book and rewrite it, but it had to be done properly and to be done right. And I still worry about, did I get it right? But you have to take risks to have diverse characters in your novels.
So what you're telling me is that they had to pull the book away from you at some point and say, okay, you're finished.
Not necessarily. It was, they said, let's take a step back. And then we did one read, and then I did a revision with that read. That was the first one. And then we did one more after, just to kind of solidify that if I had, done it right and done a good job. And there were still a few changes with that. There was a sensitivity reader for Lupe from different aspects as well. Not so many changes with Lupe. She was pretty much her own character, and I think I got her right from the beginning. I knew who she was, and I think she was, well, as far as who she was as a character, was pretty authentic. But yeah, Niles was the most difficult.
So parents, teachers, caregivers that are looking at the both of us now and listening to what we're saying are thinking, wow, this sounds more like an adult novel than a middle grade novel.
Mm-hmm.
I think adults can certainly read it and love it. I did. But what makes it a middle grade novel?
Well, I think that for Lupe as a character, she is going through those awkward years. And I think that kids, aside from the parts of, her racial background, what have you, kids can relate to a lot of what she's going through at school with her friendships and even with her family. It's not exclusive to her race, these relationships with her family. I think that she's got a lot of unique friendships, and they do mimic some of my daughter's friendships. And so I think kids can relate to her. And then of course, as she's going through these other issues, some which are more difficult, they're like, wow, I really like Lupe, and now I feel more for her and I can understand what she's going through. I think adults can feel the same way, but for kids, they understand, like, a lot of these things that happen in her daily routine are exactly what they're going through as well.
I think that's very well put. What happens, let's say 20 years from now, when Lupe picks up the book and looks at it and says, how could you write this stuff about me?
I don't think she'd say that.
Yeah, but that's the question I asked. I'm assuming
I
that
know.
that's the emotion, which is a different question than you heard on the previous interview, which is why I changed
Well,
it.
I think that Lupe would look back, and I don't think she'd be angry. I think she would be, I am so glad that you got that down, because that was a difficult experience, and we have to rip off the Band-Aid and look at these things and evaluate them. I don't think she would look back at it as like, how dare you? I think she would look back and say, you got me at these horrible, I laugh all the time at the things that I did as a kid. And I'm like, oh my, and of course I cringe and it's humiliating, but we learn from those, and it depends on the kind of adult you turn into. And I don't think Lupe is going to be
Well,
the
and
kind
that
of
was,
girl.
you anticipated my next question. What is she
Oh,
doing 22 years from now?
she's playing in the major leagues. She's a pitcher.
For
She's
who?
the first.
For whom?
Oh, the Mariners, Seattle Mariners.
Definitely Seattle Mariners. They've let her start. We've come that far.
20 years. So well, she had to go. She went through the minors, and she got picked up in her third year. So yeah, she's pitching for the majors now.
That's very specific. So are we writing the Netflix series? Is that what's going on right now?
Hey, I think, this is one of these worlds and these characters where I think all the time about, I wonder what they're doing right now. And I do have kind of these, ideas in my imagination of where they are and what they're up to.
So you, without giving it away, you end the book on a pretty positive, heartwarming note. And I'm not going to go into what that is, but was that on purpose, or did the book just suddenly end up there?
I just wanted it to end on a hopeful note. I mean, we go through some heavy stuff, and I want kids, obviously it's written for children, so I want them to go into it see the ending and see the possibilities of what can be. There's still some things left to question. I mean, Lupe's in the last
don't give it away.
She is pondering, and she ponders with an adult about still changes that can be made. So it's not a perfect world, but it's hopeful, and I think that's important.
How much research did you have to do into square dancing?
Oh my gosh, I know way more about square dancing than I ever thought I would.
I think we all that have read the book know more about square dancing than we ever did.
I shouldn't even say this out loud. I hope my last thoughts on this earth are not about square dancing, because that's what's so embedded in my brain.
It's going to be, I should have been a professional square dancer. So do you think, after all this, do you think we should get rid of square dancing from the curriculum? You personally?
That's such a loaded question.
I know.
Oh my gosh. No, I don't. I think that we need it should be part of a curriculum. I think that, I think, as you know, and again, not to give away anything, but there are parts of square dancing that are problematic, and some of the music and things like that. But square dancing itself is not the problem. And I think, but we need to incorporate and integrate other cultural dances and parts.
Influences.
Absolutely. Yeah. My mother was an educator, and she passed away recently, but I was able to read the book to her. Thank you.
She was able to hear the book?
Yeah, I read it
Awesome.
to her. And I kept thinking she was really weak at the time, so I kept thinking she was falling asleep. And I would stop reading, and I would slowly close the book, and she'd reach over with her hand to knock me to keep reading. But before we started, she said to me, she goes, "Oh, Donna," she goes, "you're going to ruin square dancing for everyone." And when I was done reading the book, I just said, "Well, what did you think?" And she goes, "I get it." She's like, "I get it." And so it wasn't about ruining square dancing for anyone. It's, making it.
Well, it's not about destroying the obstacle, is it?
No.
And we'll put a pin in that one, right? Because we don't want to give that away too much either.
Yeah.
So would you hang out for a few more minutes and talk about some spoilers with me?
Oh, of course.
All right. So I'm going to keep talking to Donna because the conversation's about to get interesting. Unfortunately, you're not going to be privy to it in this part of the interview because it's going to contain a lot of spoilers, and you're going to have to come back for the second part. I'll see you back at the desk.
I really hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did. Don't forget, there's a part 2 where we do all sorts of spoilers. But I really don't want you to watch that until after you've read the book, because we talk about some behind-the-scenes revelations with regard to the characters. There's also a book giveaway, and all the instructions on how you can get your very own free copy of the book and some swag are contained in the description on the YouTube video right below us. So make sure you click on the links to figure out how to do it. Listen, it's my pleasure to bring you these author interviews, but we can't do it without your help, and that includes liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Also, I need you to remember that at Mr. Alex's bookshelf, we know that the word parent is not just a noun, it's also a verb. And a few of you have been writing to me and asking me, well, what does that mean? It means that as parents and caretakers, it's our job to get involved in our children's lives, not to sit idly by. I'll see you next time. Have a great one.